G'day everyone and welcome to my art channel Brushes with Beck. Today's video is a bit of a themed video because today, which is Saturday the 8th of May, is World Migratory Bird Day. So for those of you who aren't interested in birds, you may think that's not very exciting, but World Migratory Bird Day is a day for awareness and appreciation for the migratory birds of the world and the main flyways of the world, which span many different countries, and the agreements that many of these countries have between each other in order to help preserve these various species of birds. So it's a pretty important day when it comes to conservation and species diversity, because a bird that migrates from Russia to Australia doesn't just fly directly there. In most cases, they make many stops along the way at different beaches and coastal areas to feed. So the flyways along those areas through the many different countries are really, really important for the survival of those species. So I thought for this day it was a good idea for me to draw a migratory shorebird that visits Australia, and so that's what this video is about. If this is your first time visiting my channel, please hit that subscribe button and remember to click on that notification bell button so that you are notified of every upload. So this little bird that I am drawing today is one that I only saw for the first time very recently. It is called a Lesser Sand Plover, and basically migrates to Australia for every Northern Hemisphere winter. It spends the summer in Australia. And Australia has 36 species of migratory shorebirds. 35 of those spend the summer here, and they come from Europe or Southeast Asia or places like that. And one species migrates here from New Zealand, and it spends the winter in Australia, the Southern Hemisphere winter here, because it breeds over in New Zealand in summer. So we don't have any migratory shorebirds that actually are resident breeding populations. They don't spend the summer in Australia and then migrate somewhere else for winter. They come to Australia to stay over winter. So apart from that, we do have many resident shorebirds that live in Australia year-round and breed here as well. But this day is about migratory birds. Now, obviously, shorebirds aren't the only migratory birds. I do apologise for talking about birds so much. I am going to get to talking about this drawing a little bit, but I just wanted to touch a bit more on the birds. And obviously, there are more migratory birds than just shorebirds. There are migratory warblers and sparrows and parrots and all sorts. So it's not just about the shorebirds on this day, but they make up quite a significant population of migratory birds every single year. So as I said, moving on to the piece of artwork, I am working on Canson Mi-Teintes for this piece. This is one of the grey tones, one of the lighter grey tones, and I am using the reverse side of the paper, which I have mentioned before. It is a fine-grained side versus the honeycomb side, and I am using both my Derwent Drawing pencils and my Faber-Castell Polychromos coloured pencils for this. And they work quite well together on this paper. If you've been paying attention to what I've been drawing, I've been using the Derwent Drawing pencils for a lot of underlayer areas. That light peachy colour you see on the right hand side is a Derwent Drawing colour, as was the sort of rich ruby red colour that I used in that dark shadow. So for working on Canson Mi-Teintes, it is really largely about, like it is with most things, is building up layers. I find I don't have to go super light with my lower layers on Mi-Teintes, but because I need to apply too many layers. I just need to make sure I'm planning my layers well, working smartly from an underlayer to a top layer, because it doesn't accept as many layers as a paper such as Pastel Matte does. But I really love working on Canson Mi-Teintes because I feel like I can get to a result more quickly, like a more finished piece much more quickly. I find it very easy to work on in that regard, And the more I work on it, the more that I really, really love it. I mean, I really liked it from the first time I used it, but it is just a very nice paper, and as you can see, I can get a wide variety of really bright, vibrant whites and then some nice dark tones. And if I really wanted to, I could burnish a little more and completely get rid of the paper grain as well. So it really is just a matter of slowly building up those layers. And I find that even just the very lightest touch after I've added a lot of layers, I can sort of just slightly alter a color a little bit to add a hint of something over the top. And it does a really good job of adding a little bit more color tone. So just working through this little plover, I actually can't remember if I said now, it is a lesser sand plover. It migrates from, I think, Central and Northern Asia and comes down into Australia for the Australian summer, and not very common where I am at all, quite uncommon actually, so it was a real treat to see this one, and this one was actually in breeding plumage as well. And you don't normally see hardly any waders in breeding plumage here in Australia because they're all in their non-breeding plumage, because obviously they've come here to get away from their winter and spend the summer here. So a lot of the shorebirds that we get in Australia, they're quite drab, mottled brown, not much to really set them apart, and you really have to study them quite closely to tell them apart, as opposed to in the Northern Hemisphere, when they're in breeding plumage, they can be quite easy to tell apart, very vibrant and bold colours. So seeing this one in breeding plumage was an absolute treat. It stood out like a sore thumb on the beach, and the fact that it was here so late in the overwintering stage, it should have migrated north by now, that was quite interesting as well. So I thought this little bird was the perfect subject for Migratory Bird Day, and I thought, you know me, if you've watched my videos before, I like to share something about the animal that I'm drawing, share a bit of information that I've learned, as well as talking about how I've gone and done the drawing. So I had a lot of fun building up the orange areas on the bird. I didn't actually use many colours. There's the Derwent Drawing colour for the underlayer, which is light sienna. And then I used terracotta and dark chrome yellow for the really bright patch there. And I just really slowly built up those colours, working slowly over that whole area. And I got a beautiful smooth blend, beautiful transition between the colours, and a really vibrant sort of colour. And I absolutely love how it turned out. And very, very pleased with the result with this one. I have drawn a little shorebird on Canson Mi-Teintes in the past, but it was a much smaller piece of paper and I did it in much less time. So this was really, really enjoyable to do. I actually pretty much got this one done in not one session, but one day, which was really great for just getting into the flow of the whole piece rather than stopping and starting over multiple days when it can be hard to get back into it. So this one just worked really nicely. Now for those vibrant white areas, especially on that flank there, I just went in with straight white and then build up any shadows I need to around the edge afterwards. And it's really important to preserve the white on Canson Mi-Teintes. I find I can't get it as vibrant if I make a mistake and need to do white over something and get it really bright. It doesn't always quite work out, and it's just really important just to go straight in with white and not put anything underneath there. So in terms of drawing a bird like this, I find I did as much detail as possible with my sketch transfer, and then as I work through the piece, I lightly map in details with a relevant colour and then alter them as I need to as I work through that piece. So it was really interesting working through this to see the different colours. If you've watched the video about how I pick my colours, I have my image open in Photoshop and I'm using the eyedropper tool to just look at different areas and see what colours come up in those areas. And I found that really, really helpful for getting not only my colours right, but my values right as well, to make sure I'm going nice and dark in those really dark areas, like in that line down the breast of the bird there, and making sure I'm getting everything dark enough, because I definitely used to have a habit of not going dark enough in my shadows, but I've really improved on that a lot recently, which I'm very, very proud of. And the fact that that bird has that dark line down the breast there where the two sides are sort of bulging out, this bird is really well fed, very plump, and ready to migrate any day. So it was good to see him looking so healthy. Well, him or her, I don't know. The most complicated part of this bird was this area over the back with the wing there. Shorebirds, they always have these complicated patterns on their backs, and it can be really, I find it a little bit frustrating to do, and it's really hard to focus on a small area and do it properly. I find I often get lost over the whole thing and kind of don't focus as much as I should on one particular section before moving on to the next section, and then it can get a little bit messy. But working through it, I got to a point in the end where I actually really liked it, and I actually thought it came out quite well. So this is definitely one of my favourite recent pieces. I love how contrasty it is, how vibrant those bright colours are, and how deep the shadows are. I think it's come up really, really well. So it's basically the same though with any other coloured pencil piece, is that it really is about layering, and I find that planning your layers well goes a really long way to a successful outcome, basically. I tend to start off with one of the lightest tones that I can see in that area, and then build up over that tone the darker colours that I need to do. And with the area like the back of this bird, I find it important to map everything out first and make sure that I keep that map so that I don't get lost. I still get a bit overwhelmed by the amount of different shapes, but if you keep that detail there from early on, it's much easier to progress through it rather than having to add it in. So that's probably all that I have to say about this little plover. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. As I said earlier, please subscribe to my channel, comment down below if you liked the video. Tell me if you've ever seen one of these lesser sand plovers before, no matter where you are in the world. I myself am a keen birder, so I know that a lot of animal artists are also into not necessarily bird watching, but very keen interest in animals in general and conservation. So it's good to find out about like-minded people in that regard. So World Migratory Bird Day actually occurs twice a year. So in May, and I think it's also October, because migratory birds obviously migrate twice a year, so it's celebrated twice a year for awareness and also as a way to observe birds. Now, the one today also coincides with the Global Big Day. And I'm not sure if that's run by eBird, which is a bird listing website run by, I think it's Cornell. But yeah, World Migratory Bird Day coincides with Global Big Day this year. So get out there, see some birds, record them, and contribute to the massive, I guess, citizen science project that is bird watching and recording their movements and locations and populations, because all of those things are really important to help aid in the survival of species. Knowing where they are and how many there are can really help aid us in conserving all sorts of different species. So once again, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, comment down below, and like this video. And I will see you next week for another video. Stay creative.